What's going on, everyone? I'm Harris Rubenstein. Joining me today is Brent Corobotiuc, the head risk manager for BetDSI. Brent, thank you for joining us again this week.
Thanks for having me back on, Harris.
All right, so let's start with the huge NFC South matchup that we have this week. Saints Falcons both 1-1 in Atlanta on Sunday, excuse me. The line currently has the Falcons favored by 3. What kind of movement have you seen on that game so far this week?
Yeah, actually, this is one of the more heavily bet games of the week for us. Good, I'm going to say good two-way action. It slightly favors New Orleans in terms of the actual number of bets that I've taken. It's really an interesting game the way this one sets up because obviously, New Orleans looked pretty bad opening week and not so good last week either. Yet here they are, only like a 3.5-point dog initially. Now they're a 3-point dog because I've got actually sharp money bet on New Orleans now. It's not often that sharps align. Sometimes they go against each other, but every now and then a couple sharps will be on the same side, and that's the case this week. So I've got two different sharp guys, both on New Orleans Saints. The first bet came in at plus 3.5. Now what we do whenever the line is around 3.5 and 3, usually we go down to 3 and we start using a money line juice on that. So after plus 3.5 on New Orleans, we went to Atlanta -3, -115, and we took even more money back on New Orleans from sharps as well. So we're actually all the way. We flipped this in terms of the juice being New Orleans. The price to bet them +3 is now -120. So solid big bets on New Orleans. Good two-way action from the public, though. And, New Orleans, they're in a decent spot, I think, with this one as well. I kind of like the position we're in right now in that I think, just judging the way the bets are coming in, I'm probably going to need New Orleans by kickoff. And it's just, I think, Kamara out of the backfield is going to be a lot of trouble for Atlanta's defense. They're really beat up and a whole lot of hurt. I think offensively, Freeman's probably going to be out for Atlanta, and Jones, I think, is kind of like limited as well. So it's one of those spots where if you ask me, like right now going into Sunday, New Orleans is probably, the better side right now. If you look over the course of the season, I'm sure Atlanta will be.
It's interesting to see New Orleans, or at least going into Atlanta as the underdog. They did struggle against the Browns last week, but with what we saw with them last season, I'm sure that they'll get their groove back eventually, but tough game for them coming up in Atlanta. Let's go back to those sharps. What are you seeing with them across the NFL? Are there any games that are jumping out, kind of more so than others outside of the Atlanta game?
Yeah, sharps actually so far this year have done pretty good. Now, I think opening week we touched on about 5 games and they won 3-2. They went 3-2, and last week they went 4-2 actually in the NFL. So the sharps have done pretty well so far. We had a good spot with the sharps in public being opposite with the Chicago Seattle game, so that worked out well for us. This week, looking ahead, I've got a couple sides and totals as well. In addition to New Orleans, the Oakland game going over 43.5. That's Oakland at Miami. Now, no one's really talking about Miami here, but they're leading the division right now at 2-0. A couple wins under the belt. Now, I believe it was Tennessee they beat opening week and the Jets last week, so maybe nothing really to write home about. But Sharps were on Miami last week when the line was 3.5 on the road at the Jets. This time around, they're playing the over 43.5 in that game. This total's moved up to 45, so significant movement there. Another side for here is San Francisco. Now, they took San Francisco. They're on the road at Kansas City. Now, Kansas City obviously is one of the hot teams, putting up a whole lot of points. I think in 2 games they've put up 40 points so far this season. So, we kind of expected a high-scoring offense from Kansas City and expected their defense to give up a whole lot of points. Now, in 2 games, they have given up 65 points, and sharp money came here on San Francisco. Now, when the line was 7, what this sharp guy did, he bought a half a point. So he took this line, which bettors have the option of doing. Usually sharp guys will do this around key numbers 3 and 7. Now, 3, of course, being field goals and 7 being touchdowns. So those are your most common outcomes in terms of scoring. Now, like I said, when the line was 7, they took San Francisco buying a half point, so they laid -120 on that. My count in terms of the actual individual number of bets I've taken slightly favors Kansas City, so I expect that to continue in terms of more bets coming in towards Kansas City, and I probably even this one out or even need San Francisco come kickoff. We are Kansas City -6.5 right now. Another one, this is I find this a really interesting game because it's Arizona where the sharp money came in. They're on the road at Chicago. Now, I know Arizona has looked, very, very bad so far this season. And, those are kind of the spots where sharps will look and say, maybe the public is overreacting to, or, overreacting to a team's poor performance. This one here, Arizona plus 6.5. Again, they're 0-2. They've scored 6 points so far in the season. And Chicago, it's funny because people used to kick them so bad, and now they're like the flavor of the NFL. I would say them and Tampa Bay are two teams that kind of everyone wants to be backing right now. So I've got a whole lot of money in terms of public money betting on Chicago. My wager count in terms of, again, wager count is the actual individual number of bets I've taken. I've got like 5 times more bets on Chicago, which is way, way, way one-sided. Yeah, it's a huge number now. I'm at 5.5 right now. And the thing that really strikes me about this game is, this is quite a big spread. I think the 6.5. We're talking about Chicago on the road. Again, it's down to 5.5. But even if the number was say 6, just kind of a general rule for your listeners out there is that home field advantage in the NFL is usually worth 3 points. So you figure if the line's Chicago -6 at Arizona, then on a neutral field that line would be -9. And then say if the Bears were at home, they would be favored by 12 in this spot. And I'm like, I just can't get past like Bears favored by 12 at home to Arizona. That's one of those things that really strikes me in this line in terms of it being off. And again, the sharps did what they do and they grabbed the best number, 6.5. So they're down to 5.5 right now. And last one I'll touch on is another total. And I always say that we never need New England to win, and almost as much we never actually need a New England game to go over. Public bettors always betting overs on New England game, and unfortunately this week I've got both sharp money and public money on the over. Sharp bets came in on Detroit, New England over 49.5. This line is way up there as well. It's climbed quite a bit. I think we're at 53.5 right now. So sharp money will usually grab the best of the number, and publics often will tail it because they're going to go that way anyway. Now, people often look at the values in numbers and kind of misunderstand that these numbers really are valuable. You're talking about a 4-point move here, and it's a case where say this game lands, just say 52 or 53, you're probably going to have the sharp money winning that over 49.5, and your public guys who went over 53 and 53.5 will be losing that. So always appreciate the value of the number, but I also say to people, don't get off a bet that you really like just because the numbers moved.
Well, if the sharps are doing it, then you should too. Head to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. You deposit $100, they will give you $120 to bet on. Again, head to chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code LIVE120. All right, last thing here for you, Brent. This Buccaneers-Steelers game is just fascinating to me. It has the potential to be the best game that we see this week. The Buccaneers 2-0 in Tampa. The Steelers coming in without a win so far, their worst start since 2004. And yet the Steelers are a favorite on the road. How do you make these lines? You have a historically great team with the Steelers, but you have a hot team this year with the Bucs. How did you guys come out to this line?
I think the better question really is, how do these schedule makers come up with this game? I mean, they put this game, week 3, on Monday Night Football. Like, why in the world would Tampa Bay, looking at what they've done historically, why would they ever be on Monday Night Football? Yet, you're right. This is it's a fascinating game, really. I mean, I joked last week about Fitzpatrick being Fitzmagic the way he's going, and he did it again last week as well. So the Bucs are, they're a machine right now, sitting at 2-0, top of the division. And you're looking at Pittsburgh as well, who's a little bit of a mess. Yeah, they're they haven't won a game yet. They tied one and they won one. So they lost one. So they're 0-1-1, which is like, the Steelers. Now you've got issues in terms of the receivers, the running back, all that kind of stuff. And here they are on the road, and you make them a small favorite. And what we do, we're talking about how the evolution of the numbers. We have, power ratings that we have in-house, and we also have around 3 sources that we look to in terms of making decisions where we want to open numbers and stuff like that. Now, we get a general feeling usually that people are going to bet Pittsburgh in terms of the side. People always bet Pittsburgh. People always bet New England, for example. They always bet New Orleans Saints games over. These are just things that we know. But it's also, when teams get hot and teams make a lot of publicity, even though, we're only talking 2 weeks into the season, Tampa Bay's making a whole lot of noise. So it was one of those games where if it wasn't all this hype about Tampa Bay, we probably would have opened a little bit higher, like as high as 3, just figuring we were going to get Pittsburgh money. But we came out a little bit low with the 2.5 on Pittsburgh, and I've actually got more bets, more individual individual bets coming on the Buccaneers. So my wager count is slightly favoring Tampa Bay. My money's pretty much even, and I'm sitting at Pittsburgh -1.5 right now. Long term, in terms of one of those things that sharp players look to as well in terms of finding value, is home dogs on these games, where they're Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night. That's kind of like the immediate thing to do in terms of sharp guys looking for value. Often they find it in these marquee games where, most public people are going to bet the game, and most public people are going to bet the favorite.
Brent Corobotiuc joining us from BetDSI, the head risk manager. If you guys want to bet on any of these top NFL games, hit chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus.